Day Zero, Entrust Financial Issuance and Digital Onboarding Solutions can enable your customers to bank securely whenever and wherever they want. Create trust at onboarding and beyond with a complete AI-powered identity-centric solution for financial issuance. Reduce the complexity around everyday financial transactions that you can now place securely right at the tip of your customer's fingers. Harness the full power of a comprehensive solution, whether for end-to-end protection or specific components like award-winning document and biometric ID verification or seamless on-demand card issuance. Strengthen your infrastructure with cutting-edge identity-proofing solutions that safeguard data, prevent fraud, and ensure a smooth, secure experience at every touchpoint. This isn't banking built just for today. This is banking built for today, tomorrow, and every day. Entrust, securing a world in motion.
Built for the future? Heck, it was born in the cloud. Introducing Sigma. User-friendly? Consider the owner's manual optional. Secure. It's as if it has its own bodyguard. Forward-thinking? It's ahead of its time. Simple, secure, smart. It all adds up to Sigma. Available from Entrust.
Untuk acara IOPS ini keren banget, memberikan kita kesempatan untuk menunjukkan inovasi-inovasi di dunia banking dan digital.
Dan kita juga jadi bisa benchmark ke bank-bank lain inovasi apa aja yang mereka udah bikin untuk kita implement juga, dan modifikasi nanti kita implementasinya seperti apa di bank kami, seperti itu.
Jadi insight ya,
iya,
insight
betul.
untuk
iya.
Kita juga nggak mau kalah juga nih,
Betul.
gitu, untuk nantinya melakukan enhancement dan juga inovasi selanjutnya.
Oke, terima kasih teman-teman sudah menyelenggarakan IOPS. Semoga kedepannya semakin sukses dan menjadi tempat untuk berkreasi lebih bagus lagi.
Kompetisi hari ini menegangkan tapi seru.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. Selamat pagi yang terhormat Bapak Ibu Pengurus Inti, yang terhormat Bapak Ibu anggota FKDOP, Bapak Ibu Pengurus Harian, serta yang kami hormati seluruh peserta Indonesia Banking Innovation Conclave yang hadir pada pagi hari ini. Puji syukur kita panjatkan kehadirat Tuhan karena dengan rahmat dan izinnya kita dapat berkumpul kembali di kegiatan IBIC yang diselenggarakan oleh Forum Komunikasi Direktur Operasional Perbankan. Sebelumnya, perkenankan saya untuk memperkenalkan diri. Saya Ranti dari Sekretariat FKDOP yang akan memandu acara pagi ini. Bapak Ibu yang kami hormati, FKDOP telah mengadakan kegiatan IBIC ini dengan menghadirkan pembicara ahli dari perbankan maupun non-perbankan yang memberikan pengetahuan terkait dengan teknologi dan inovasi. Dengan diadakannya IBIC ini diharapkan dapat memberikan inspirasi atau ide-ide dalam pengembangan strategi operasional jangka panjang yang berdampak positif bagi industri perbankan nasional. Untuk itu, perkenankanlah kami mengucapkan terima kasih atas kesediaan Bapak Ibu dan para peserta yang telah mengikuti kegiatan pada pagi hari ini. Sebelumnya kami sampaikan terlebih dahulu rangkaian kegiatan IBIC, yaitu 1. Menyanyikan lagu Indonesia Raya, 2. Sambutan oleh FKDOP, 3. Sesi Indonesia Banking Innovation Conclave, 4. Sesi tanya jawab, 5. Penutup. Bapak Ibu, kita akan memasuki agenda pertama, yaitu menyanyikan lagu Indonesia Raya. Selanjutnya, sambutan serta sosialisasi kegiatan Second Annual Indonesia Operation Banking Summit 2026 oleh Wakil Ketua Bidang Profesi dan Pelatihan kepada Ibu Victoria Dini, kami persilakan.
Terima kasih Mbak Ranti. Selamat pagi Bapak Ibu dan teman-teman semuanya. Terima kasih pagi ini telah bergabung dalam webinar ini. Sebelum kita memasuki acara inti yaitu konklav, pada kesempatan ini saya akan menjelaskan tentang IOPS yang kedua. Tanpa terasa, sepertinya baru saja kemarin IOPS pertama telah sukses dilakukan. Sekarang sudah waktu berjalan begitu cepat, jadi sekarang kita sudah akan memasuki IOPS untuk yang kedua, Bapak Ibu, dengan kita tetap dengan spirit bahwa IOPS ini akan membawa perjalanan kita, teman-teman operation kita semua untuk ke ajang dunia. Dan untuk IOPS yang kedua ini kita akan bertema adalah meningkatkan kualitas operasional perbankan Indonesia supaya kita setara dengan standar global dan juga tata kelola kita, kemudian kita mengoptimalkan teknologi, inovasi-inovasi apa saja, dan juga pengembangan budaya inovasi yang agile. Jadi kita supaya bisa terus tetap selalu beradaptasi dengan perkembangan yang ada saat ini. Nah, Bapak Ibu dan teman-teman sekalian, untuk yang IOPS kedua ini kita akan memulai pendaftaran yaitu di Desember dan pendaftaran akan kita tutup di Januari 2026. Kemudian untuk submissionnya nanti akan dibuka di bulan Maret dan submissionnya ini nanti melalui webnya IOPS, jadi nanti akan kita informasikan. Kemudian untuk acaranya sendiri kita akan langsungkan di 13 April sampai dengan 16 April. Untuk IOPS yang kedua ini lebih lama dibandingkan memakan waktu lebih lama yaitu sekitar 4 hari. Ini karena pesertanya, antusias dari peserta yang semakin meningkat dan juga inovasi-inovasi apa yang akan dimasukkan juga semakin banyak dari teman-teman operation di perbankan. Maka untuk perlombaan ini waktunya akan diperpanjang. Terima kasih untuk teman-teman, Bapak Ibu semuanya yang sudah mengisi survei. Jadi kita mendapatkan gambaran untuk berapa peserta dan kemudian antusiasme untuk yang IOPS kedua ini. Untuk acara, kita akan lakukan di tempat yang sama, yaitu di Swiss Hotel di Jakarta Peak Avenue, tempat yang sama dengan IOPS yang kemarin. Kemudian untuk award-nya sendiri, di IOPS yang kedua ini itu kita ada penambahan. yaitu Collaboration Award dan Innovation Culture Management Awards. Untuk yang sama dengan yang tahun lalu adalah Improvement dan Innovation Award. Ini untuk masing-masing bank, jadi nanti akan submit abstract summary-nya, kemudian diberikan waktu 15 menit untuk presentasi dan tanya jawab 10 menit, jadi sama seperti tahun kemarin. Sedangkan untuk Collaboration Award ini untuk mengakomodir untuk beberapa bank yang akan berkolaborasi atau bekerja sama dengan inovasinya, terpikir untuk melakukan inovasi secara bersama. Nah, minimum pesertanya adalah 2 bank dan untuk pesertanya adalah minimum di L3. L3 ini kan artinya 3 level di bawah BOD atau di BOM. Nah, nanti konsepnya untuk Collaboration Award ini ada panel sesi. Jadi nanti ada panel sesi dengan manajemen. Kemudian sedangkan untuk Innovation Culture Management Award ini untuk meningkatkan budaya di masing-masing bank untuk di level manajemen sama. Ini untuk pesertanya minimum adalah L3 dan nanti prosesnya juga selain dengan submission paper juga nanti ada sesi panel dengan manajemen. Kemudian untuk yang Improvement dan Innovation Award ini dibagi menjadi apa saja. Seperti tahun kemarin, ini kita bagi menjadi Diamond, Platinum, Gold, Silver, dan Bronze. Kemudian ada additional award-nya, yaitu ada 5, Well Planned Innovator, kemudian implementasinya yang terbaik untuk yang kontrol implementasi, kemudian konsepnya, konsep inovasinya yang paling bagus, kemudian inovasinya ini breakthrough-nya bagaimana memberikan solusi untuk inovasinya, kemudian untuk efisiensi biayanya. Sedangkan untuk special award-nya itu sama, yaitu ada 3, bagaimana impact-nya terhadap industri, kemudian Best 4.0 untuk implementasi terhadap bisnis, impact-nya terhadap bisnis, dan juga secara standar nasional. Kemudian untuk kolaborasi award ini yang tadi minimum 2 bank, diharapkan bisa membawa breakthrough secara nasional, kemudian kolaborasi yang terbaik, dan kolaborasinya ini bagus secara inisiatif, secara fundamental. Ini adalah kira-kira poin-poin nanti yang akan menjadi poin di penjurian. Kemudian untuk yang Innovation Culture Management Award, itu diharapkan bahwa bisa membawa budaya ini membawa ke ranah dunia, jadi world class, kemudian manajemen yang excellent, yang bagus, yang baik, kemudian secara norma-norma fundamental juga culture-nya ini akan membawa fundamental yang baik buat perbankan tersebut. Kira-kira seperti itu untuk yang IOPS kedua ini. Nah, selanjutnya kita akan, ini adalah piala yang kemarin teman-teman untuk yang sudah mengikuti IOPS pertama ya, untuk Diamond, untuk Special Award dan tropinya. Semoga kita semua nanti bisa nih masing-masing bank mendapatkan award ini. Kalau yang IOPS Trophy nanti kembali secara bergiliran, di mana nanti IOPS Trophy untuk yang banyak pemenang dan untuk inovasinya yang banyak mewakili menerima award gitu. Oke. Bapak Ibu dan teman-teman semuanya, demikian untuk penjelasan singkat untuk yang IOPS 2026. Jika nanti ada pertanyaan, nanti bisa menghubungi ke sekretariat, bisa menghubungi Mbak Ranti. Saya yakin untuk teman-teman semua sudah mengenal Mbak Ranti dan punya nomor handphonenya. Mbak Ranti ini cukup terkenal di kalangan kita semua perbankan ya, Mbak Ranti ya. Kemudian sekarang kita akan melanjutkan ke acara inti kita di pagi hari ini, yaitu we would like to invite Mr. Andi Cis, beliau adalah Senior Director Solution Marketing dari Entrust. Mr. Andi already joined Entrust since 2017 and leads go-to-market strategies for secure payment. Kemudian beliau membawa banyak sekali inovasi di dalam digital banking, kemudian keamanan di dalam kita menjalankan financial institution deliver seamless. Kemudian dari beliau juga kita akan banyak belajar tentang fintech, tentang cloud teknologi. Beliau akan membawa banyak expertise beliau di dalam produk, marketing, dan operation. Mr. Andi holds degree from Michigan State University and also University of St. Thomas. Today topic is secure issuance, unified strengthening operational resilience for Indonesia Bank. Mr. Andi, without waiting any further, the stage is yours. Silakan teman-teman semuanya, selamat belajar, kita menggali ilmu dari Mr. Andi. Jika nanti ada pertanyaan, silakan dituliskan di chat atau nanti disampaikan langsung. Mr. Andi, thank you for sharing the knowledge. The stage is yours.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate the opportunity to present with you all, and for the partnership that many of you on the phone have with Entrust. So thank you for inviting us to participate in EOBS, and we're honored to be here. We're excited to share really kind of what we're seeing in the market, what trends we're seeing, what payment preferences are evolving globally and specifically within Indonesia, and how there are opportunities today that didn't even exist, a year ago, to bring the customer experience to the fore. And obviously that's done by execution, by operations. It's easy to talk about this stuff. Entrust has been in the business of doing it and working with operators such as yourselves for more than half a century. So some of you may know us, be very familiar with DataCard, which was founded, as we see here, in 1969, and really began issuing what we view as modern identity credentials. And that's really what we're going to talk about in the form of payments today. But throughout our history, we've supported not only consumer credentialing, but also government and enterprise credentialing. And over time, the demands, the requirements of what it took to effectively credential someone, that bar was raised, right? It became easier to attack. There were more attack vectors that could be exploited when these things began to be digitized. And so we see kind of in the mid-2000s, Entrust building out its portfolio, evolving from DataCard to Entrust DataCard, and then Entrust today. But through that transition, acquiring companies like Encipher, which brought hardware security modules into our portfolio, really securing, underpinning the encryption that's required for really any identity journey to take place securely. And then also building on top of the printer business with additional issuance capabilities, such as the digital card solution with the acquisition of Antelope. And then not only have the credentials themselves been digitized, but we've also seen the path to a credential increasingly digitized. So even though, as we'll see, consumers prefer to spend on a physical card, the way they arrive and onboard to that account is increasingly taking place digitally. And so that drove the acquisition of Onfido and biometric identity verification. But at the core of Entrust has always been issuance. That's really what we've built our business on, specifically financial issuance. And over the last 57 years, we've really become a critical piece of the issuance portfolio. We enable ultimately 8 out of 10 payment cards in circulation today are coming off of a system that we've produced. So very well integrated into the payments ecosystem. We couldn't have the numbers that we see here, the reach, without some really strong alliance partners. So whether that's Visa and MasterCard, Google, Apple Pay, PCI, EMV, right? A lot of these consortia and other large identity providers are ones that we've necessarily had to work with and integrate with. And so when it comes to the operations and the execution of an issuance strategy, right, it begins with having everyone on the same page, if you will, right? Payments and issuance is such a complex ecosystem. It really requires coordination. Even as we'll see with a portfolio as broad as ours, we still necessarily, maybe obviously to many of you, right, work with a lot of strategic partners to bring our solutions to market. So just going to provide a little bit of background on kind of where Entrust sits today for those of you who may not be aware of Entrust or Data Card, and then maybe an update for those of you who we're checking back in with. So here we see on the right sort of a graphic that shows how Entrust views where and how it participates in the identity ecosystem. So if you think about issuance as moments in time, right? Issuance doesn't just happen once, but there are these moments in time throughout a consumer's journey that enable them to do something that they could not do before that moment of issuance. But in order to get there, there's know your customer, there's anti-money laundering regulations that have to be cleared either in person or digitally. And so again, through that acquisition of Onfido, through some digital signature technology that we have, as well as an authentication suite, we're able to help financial institutions confidently decide whether an individual is someone they want to do business with. And so that vetting process and making sure that it's not kind of a one size fits all. We pride ourselves on having the ability to do risk-based challenges and decisionings such that someone who lines up to a lot of the expectations in terms of where they might be or what device they might be using, right? They're going to have a much easier and more seamless journey from someone who's throwing up red flags because they may not be in the region that you would expect them to be, or they've made a lot of attempts off of this device previously to open accounts, which are good indicators of bad actors. So that onboarding piece is something that we've really accelerated in the last few years, I should say, really since 2023 with the acquisition of Onfido, but it was all done in the name of strengthening our issuance portfolio, right? How do we get more people able to receive these credentials, be they government or consumer, workforce, education, etc.? So just wanted to take that hex that we saw on the last page and kind of pull it out into discrete solutions that we provide. We're going to turn this presentation over to whoever wants it. On the Entrust side, we're happy to share everything that we're going to walk through today. So I know there's some fine print and there's going to be, by the end of it, a lot of information shared, but just know that there's about almost a dozen of us from Entrust on the phone here that would love to follow up and field any questions if they happen to be something that we're not going to dig super deep into today. But across onboarding, again, we have the biometric IDV, the signing, and the auth. Under issuance, where we'll really spend a lot of time today, we span that full spectrum from central to instant card issuance through to digital tokenization and provisioning. And we do that not just for banks and financial institutions, we also do it for governments, national, state, and local governments, and then some of the biggest employers and non-governmental organizations globally. So that issuance spectrum is one that we certainly operate in across the issuance use case. And that's kind of what we'll talk about today is how do you begin to take these things that are all being done or want to be done and create a cohesive consumer experience, one that really pulls your brand through to have maximum impact, not only from a security and business impact standpoint, but also from a customer satisfaction and affinity. And then there's obviously the ongoing monitoring and management of not only these credentials that people are using, but also device identities, certificates, secrets, right? That whole infrastructure of security and encryption is underpinned again by our hardware security module portfolio, as well as cryptographic security platform. So if you were to go on entrust.com, these are roughly the solutions that you would see. And we really continue to invest heavily in the issuance portfolio because we see it as such a dynamic space. Even as there's a lot of investment in IDV, for instance, identity verification, we know that that's a means to an end, right? No one's going to do biometric identity verification in and of itself. There's no inherent value. You do biometric IDV so that you can then issue that person some valuable credential that allows them to cross a border or access government benefits in the case of a government to citizen use case. Consumer use case, when we think about banks and financial institutions, financial services providers, enabling their users to pay where they want, how they want, with whatever form factor they desire. And we see that as increasingly globally, there's this acceleration away from cash. And that takes many forms. Obviously, there's things like QR codes. Crypto is increasingly transactable, but a lot of that cashless migration is going to physical cards and digital cards. And so they remain really a key piece of the spend mix of consumers globally. And then workforce. Obviously, it's great to go out and be a consumer and a citizen, but also many of us are a part of the workforce, and inherent in that responsibility and that role are accessing secure systems, communicating with folks with confidential information, moving through secure facilities. So whether it's a digital identity that's being monitored and managed and verified, or a physical identity, there's a lot of movement in that space. And while we did see some selective pullback in terms of physical badging with the onset of COVID-19, we actually see a lot of that return to office driving a new reissuance wave and a new evaluation of workforce technology. So that's kind of the broad scope of where Entrust plays, but we're fortunate to have a large global team, and it's not uncommon that we'll go into specific regions or specific verticals or use cases and do some proprietary research. So we ran a survey of only 750 consumers, but they were all over the age of 18 and had a bank account. And so spanned kind of all age groups, and we're a relatively diverse population. And we saw a lot of commonality coming out of Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam, Thailand, and Malaysia, which is where we did the report. I think it's coming out in its entirety. I know it'll be out ahead of Singapore FinTech Festival. So either this week or next week, you can get the full readout. We break out Indonesia specifically throughout that report. But really what we saw is that consumers are very sensitive to fraud and security breaches, but at the same time, they want ease of use. They want to be able to access the thing they need in the moment that they need it. And oftentimes that's in the branch. As we see here, more than 1/3 of new consumers, new accounts are opened in that branch, which opens up an opportunity to build affinity, build a relationship with that customer, and using your payment form factor, your payment credential as a way of doing that. So if we wanted to construct that, we talk a lot about journeys, and that can maybe seem a little bit vague or nebulous. So I just wanted to kind of piece these things together in our mind of how might we take the various pieces of the portfolio 2 slides ago and construct a consumer journey, in this case, a bank journey through it. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time here. Obviously, if any piece of this interests you, we'd love to dig into it further, but it's really about taking an unknown person who you've never met before, and through a mobile device, being able to make that decision confidently, stand by it from a legal standpoint, from a KYC and AML standpoint, and then enable that person to go out and do something almost instantly. So as soon as that decision is made, enabling them to begin spending, get that card in the mail, and or offer an instant receipt option for these consumers. Right, that's how this journey would sort of piece together in a financial lens. But as we see here, we also support a number of other persona, if you will, when it comes to credential issuance. So just teeing up a little bit of kind of the matrix of credential issuance. Obviously, we'll talk a lot about credentials for consumers today, but at the end of the day, they're really kind of all the same thing, which is something, some token, some credential that can be used to gain access to either services from a government, make payments online or in person as a consumer. And maybe that varies whether I'm online or in person of which credential I use. We often see that there's a strong preference for the physical card in store, and then online, these accelerated checkout buttons are preferred. So consumers are never, from what we're seeing in the data, one or the other. As they have a new option, they want to integrate that into their spend mix, but it almost never do we see it take over the full spend portfolio. So the more optionality customers have, the more likely they are to look to a financial institution for that next product. And given payment credentials are some of the first items that a new customer to a financial institution is using, that's kind of that first impression, that ability to enable them to not only have purchasing power, access funds. There's a peace of mind that comes to knowing that if anything happens to this credential, I can have one activated through the bureau. I can maybe go to a local retail location and receive a card, as well as do things digitally, like even turn off that physical card. So the payment credential in the life of a bank consumer is really this kind of make or break experience. And that's something that can be communicated through the card itself. We'll talk a lot about how the look and feel of the card is evolving, but it can also be done through the delivery of that card and the optionality that's provided to the customer. We're also going to talk a little bit about self-service as we get further into the presentation. So it's kind of a derivation, a version of instant issuance where we've worked with kiosk providers, interactive teller machine manufacturers globally to embed our solutions in that kiosk so that someone could still receive a physical card instantly, but they're not having to do a human-to-human interaction, which is an increasingly popular option. It's something we've offered for many years, and quite honestly, in the last 12 months, it's really gained some momentum. But whether we're talking about centrally issued cards through something like an MX, or instantly issued cards through something like an instant financial issuance printer, the end result is ultimately the same. The desire to have a great looking, long lasting, highly capable payment credential remains the same. And that's why, as we take a look at the solution a little later in the presentation, we'll see that ultimately we're trying our very best to get to that same end technology, whether it's Artista or durable graphics, whatever we can take from the central issuance portfolio and essentially miniaturize, which isn't every capability in CI. There's certainly things that central issuance and our bureau solutions can do that no one has yet found a way to package them into desktop printers. But a majority of our portfolio overlaps, and that's because we see across the globe, across account types, so debit, credit, business, there's this move away from embossed characters, and there's an increase of folks who are taking advantage of the move away from emboss to really flex that brand. So no longer do we have to hammer 16 digits into the front of the card in a courier font. We're able to change that font, change the location of sensitive information. As people are increasingly tapping cards, we're noticing more and more issuers are moving that sensitive information to the bottom of the card. We see that on the Visa Quick Read in the far right of this slide. It not only adds that extra layer of security, but it also allows, in this case, SoFi or any issuing bank to really put their brand front and center. And then with the arrival of mobile phone and payments, people are more used to using at least their mobile phone in that portrait mode. So they're holding it and tapping it in that way. And we see physical payment cards kind of following that same design, which is the user is no longer going to horizontally approach the point of sale. It's typically now a portrait mode, if you will. And we see the design evolving with that. And so I think it's personally really neat to see this evolution. It's still the same dimensions. Oftentimes it's still PVC, but even that form factor of PVC is beginning to evolve. So this is simply to say we see a lot of energy and investment behind physical payment cards. We see it not just exclusively with ourselves. We look out across the market when we talk with analyst community. We hear, the market is strong, and it's largely driven by, again, this move away from embossed and adoption of flat, and taking advantage of all of the brand and in some cases personalization opportunities that come with it. So across the globe, as we see here, there's this shift up as folks move right. And it's offering, as I said, some really interesting things, not only in terms of design, but also in terms of materials. So metal cards are something that have obviously really become very popular with a certain subset of customers. And so having the ability to at least do that through your bureau, through your central issuance solution, is something that is increasingly popular. We haven't yet, as you'll learn, found a way to package that necessary technology into a desktop printer. Part of the reasons is when you're doing the metal card personalization, there's some fumes and things that have to be dealt with through a specialized HVAC air filtering system. So things we're working through. And as you'll see, we're continuing to invest and push the frontier of innovation when it comes to card issuance. And that's something that's really necessitated by these financial institutions wanting to differentiate themselves. And it's not just look and feel and brand impact. Those things matter, especially when we think about folks who are just coming into a formal bank account, maybe the younger set that this is going to be their first payment credential. And so they're going to have a certain level of affinity and a higher, more enhanced kind of first impression antenna up, if you will. So all of those things matter, but we also see in the bottom line that when a consumer has an option between a flat and an embossed, they will choose the flat card more often. And we see nearly 80% of the customers that have adopted flat card technology from Entrust see an increase in transactions. The number of transactions varies. Some saw several dozen extra transactions. Most were kind of mid-single digits for the given time slot measured. But something that definitely resonates with customers, and something that again allows you an opportunity to reimagine not just the brand and the way your customers interact with what is effectively a mini billboard on a daily basis. It's something they're certainly seeing and interacting with, and oftentimes it's something they're using in a social setting. And increasingly, we see that conversation taking place around the design of the card, but also how did you receive the card? What kind of mailer did it come in? How were you able to receive that instantly, are all things that not every financial institution is doing. And so those that do, flexing that, leaning into it, and making sure it's a cohesive, unified experience is something that can really set yourselves apart from peer financial institutions through that experience. Speaking of the kind of the younger generation, I think a lot of folks assumed that the eco card substrate would kind of be the most popular with the younger consumer set, maybe only popular with the younger consumer set. But we actually see that preference spans all folks. So whether you're looking at Gen Z through to millennials, Gen X, baby boomers, there's a preference for these more eco-friendly materials. We see that there's a low tolerance for things like durability or sacrificing durability or usability. And so at the Entrust testing labs here in Minnesota, we've been, for the last 18 months, been running abrasion tests, durability, and endurance tests on these new eco substrates that we've been receiving from various card manufacturers. Many have been cleared. We're still working through kind of the long tail, if you will. But if that's something that is a part of your strategy when it comes to physical payment card issuance, know that we're investing in it. Know that we have a lot of options available to you today, not only from central issuance solutions, but also from our instant issuance portfolio. And we'll all be around afterwards for questions. I'm running off a single monitor here, so anyone on the call, feel free to interrupt me if there's a question or something along those lines. I know 2% isn't an eye-popping number. I did just I wanted to add this simply to say that when you have a market that issues 3.5 billion of something and it continues to grow at 2% CAGR, there's clearly a lot of value in that type of credential. And I think it's validation for the investments we and kind of the entire industry has made around the reimagining of what a physical card could be. We're also receiving things like biometric cards that have certain sensors of them. And so there's a lot of innovation and room to run in that physical card market. And that's why we continue to spend tens of millions of dollars every single year in research and development, bringing new solutions. Because wherever we look around the world, we see that physical payment cards remain a top payment preference. I dropped a label here. The right side of any region is in-store payments, and the left side are e-commerce payments. So certainly a stronger preference for physical cards when we look in the store. But even for those e-commerce payments, it's a strong share of wallet, typically coming in third or fourth place. And that's why we've, again, continued to not only push forward drop on demand, which we'll talk a little bit about, kind of an extension to that portfolio today, but also durable graphics and Artista VHD. All three really built for purpose, whether you want to do personalization that's going to last an incredibly long time, look fantastic, potentially use metallic materials, supplies, or you'd prefer the full print and that dynamism and definition and customization options that come with things like the Artista VHD. So a full portfolio here that I'm often asked, well, which one's the best? And it really comes down to what's the use case? What is it that you're trying to achieve? What's the target user looking for? And so whether or not, Artista is better than drop on demand or durable graphics is better than either of the others, it really comes down to what's the use case and what are you currently leveraging today? How might a move from embossed benefit from something like the adoption of durable graphics, where you're not necessarily having to redesign the entire card in order to move off of embossed with the metallic inks You're able to essentially mimic that silver or gold tipping foil, but it will last much, much longer than the tipping foil, but still maintain that visual integrity that the embossed card did. Oftentimes, we'll see customers redesign their card as they move to flat, adopt something like a portrait mode and move some personalization to the back, but that's not necessary. It's not necessary given the breadth and the diverse capability of our central issuance technology. I did want to just very quickly touch on drop on demand before we move into a quick look at instant issuance and self-service. And that's with the addition of the drop on demand light printing module. This is a unit that we are going to be showcasing at the Singapore FinTech Festival. We'll have a large booth. Many of the folks on the call from Entrust here today will be there demoing this new drop on demand light module that is available as an upgrade to the MX 2100 and the MX 1100. This is one innovation that we have rolling out in the near to mid future. And so I don't want to shine too much of a spotlight on this one because we continue to invest in all three pillar technologies in central issuance. I wanted to call this one out because it was just released in the last couple of months. And again, if you happen to be visiting the Singapore FinTech Festival, we'd love to show you that solution in action. We'll also have the full slate of instant financial issuance printers at Singapore FinTech Festival as well. We've talked, a lot about hardware up to this point, and that obviously is really where the rubber meets the road when it comes to card issuance and physical card personalization and activation. But behind the scenes, Entrust has also built up an immense software and systems capability to not only make these solutions more efficient, but also easier to use and more secure. So whether it's something like quality assurance, the ability to check antenna quality and verify that, through to the ability to just execute on a better level of print, moving away from traditional embossing. There's a full slate of features as well as best practices that our team can share, given we work with a vast majority of the card issuers globally. So we've seen a lot and would love to share that expertise with you. And that's really what's driving these continued innovations in the central issuance space here. As I called out earlier, we're continuing to test through batches of eco cards, continue to test new metal substrates as those arrive. Lastly, I'll just touch on production analytics solution, which is a fantastic overlay allowing operators of MX or central issuance machines to not only understand the status of their systems, but also glean where can efficiencies be introduced. It's really provided a lot of efficiency for many of the bureaus that have adopted it to date. We do have a dedicated consultant that works with PAS, the production analytics solution, and he travels all over the world working with bureaus for an extended period of time. And so we're happy to have him hop on a call and share any additional information about production analytics solution. But didn't want to gloss over the fact that we're not just building these fantastic card printers, we're also providing really intelligent technology that will be anticipating things like post-quantum cryptography, right? Looking out over the horizon to say, what are the different types of attacks or opportunities that are going to come for credential issuance? How do we prepare our customers to fend off the attacks and take advantage of the opportunities? And obviously, increasingly, software is hugely important to that. Now we'll pivot into the instant issuance portfolio. Highly complementary, as I said, really drafts strongly off of the innovation in the central issuance space. It's not uncommon that what we're building in IFI is something that we've proved out in a bigger, higher volume form factor in central issuance. So The customers that do use instant financial issuance are using it, for specific applications of card issuance. For instance, they want in-branch onboarding to have that option, or if someone has lost a card, being able to access that card very quickly matters in that moment. It's kind of a critical, emergent situation where they would like to have that card instantly accessible to them, either through a branch or through an interactive teller machine. So a good kind of, again, option in the issuance portfolio, in the issuance spectrum, because while it does require some additional operational overhead in the branch, you've got to run the printer. They're fairly low maintenance, easy to change the supplies, and easy to clean and those things. But with that burden, if you will, comes immense benefit, outsized benefit, where that person is more likely to go out and begin using that card because they've received it in person. They know that it's activated. It's a permanent card, and it's something that they could take to an ATM before they leave the branch or take next door and make a purchase. So we see really strong interchange fees off of that spend, which we'll touch on. But when we talk to our customers, more than 1,800, nearly 2,000 financial institutions globally, they always lead with, we do instant issuance because it's the right thing for our customers. And they feel that when they look at their online reviews, when they ask new members or customers, how did you hear about us? Someone who has gone through instant issuance is more likely to recommend that bank, is more likely to give them a 5-star review, as well as we see on this slide, spend on that card more frequently, typically spend on that card faster, and an overall increase again in the transaction amounts, as well as the number of times they're using that in a day or a week. So a good boon to the folks who need it, who want it, not necessarily for everyone everywhere, but as an option to customers to come in, meet a real person, have a conversation not only about replacing that card, but potentially other products or services that the financial institution offers, or mobile banking, digital banking options that they may have. It really becomes this launch pad that isn't only a way to get a payment card into the hands of a consumer, but is also a way to build that relationship. They walk out of the branch with not just a great looking, highly durable, highly capable payment card. They've met someone who probably lives in their local community, someone who they may want to go back and talk to about a home loan or whatever their next financial product or service that they need is. They're more likely to go to that bank because they've had that in-person human moment while also receiving something of great value. There's a lot we could talk about sort of in regard to the instant financial issuance portfolio, in terms of details and speeds and feeds and integrations that we have and those things. And we'd love to further that conversation. I won't necessarily go into all of that today just for the sake of time, but wanted to highlight with this view simply to say we have these printers that can sit within a branch and be operated by a person as a new customer comes in, or as a customer comes in who needs to replace a card. We also work with kiosk and ITM manufacturers to create self-service. We have some middleware that can link with an ITM and kind of integrate into whatever existing job it's doing, dispensing cash, those things. We also issue debit, credit, as well as things like HSA or these other payment type cards, prepaid or closed loop. And then on the print technology, more straightforward than central issuance. We really have two pillar technologies in instant. We have an Artista, so we do have the full panel print option with our Artista engine. And then we also have the Sigma, which is capable of running durable graphics. So we have a durable graphics module that essentially cures the UV supply that is applied within the printer. And so a very similar, again, almost identical technology to what you see in the central issuance, but miniaturized, less power. So it doesn't take as much power to run those LEDs as the CI machine. But I think the takeaway there is if you have a card that you love that you're receiving through the mail, through the bureau, there's a good chance that there's a printer, a desktop printer available that at much slower speeds can put out something of highly comparable or identical quality as that central. So you keep that close match experience regardless of where that person's receiving the card. I touched on this in the CI section. We do have, in addition to white and black, metallic inks, UV curable inks in the gold and the silver, really to help that move away from emboss without necessarily redesigning the entire card. This is the third generation of direct-to-card technology that we've released, and so we've had a lot of opportunities to optimize the user experience, and so that's in the form of things like a support panel on the front that will display a QR code that allows that end user to self-serve whatever support article they need to get that printer back up and running, through to kind of the physical aspects of it, removing the old supply, putting in new supply. We've optimized that entire experience with a customized cassette to really make it fast, easy, and reduce the amount of potential damage that could take place. That was one thing we were seeing a lot in our older systems and competitive systems, is that the change of supply was a tenuous process because there were a lot of sensitive elements that were exposed in that time. And so just thinking through every second of the issuance experience, how do we make this better for the customer, but also better for that branch operator, that relationship manager that's ultimately using the machine. So the Sigma is used similar to durable graphics in central issuance, which is to say personalization of the card, name, PAN, expiry, CVV. We also have an Artista engine that runs in the RS4, and it does the full panel print. It has extremely high definition, so you're not seeing a border around the chip or a border around the edge of the card. It also has an improved security feature where on that spent supply, we're obscuring the sensitive information, the personally identifiable information. So PAN, name, CVV, whatever it is you want to obscure, it can be obscured. And we see an example under the secure K image there, so that if someone does gain access to that spent supply before it can be shredded, it's essentially useless. That's been a hugely popular feature as a part of this new Artista. All of our systems can run multi-hopper, so most of the printers we've been seeing through the instant issuance portion of the presentation are single hopper, like we see here. Lower right, we see essentially 6 hoppers, each with 125 cards. So that allows you to print things like debit and credit and corporate and HSA out of a single system. Our software will intelligently pull the right card based on which card you want to issue, whether it's going to pull from the credit or the debit hopper. You could also load up different card designs. It's also the primary SKU that we're putting into the interactive teller machine because it can issue so many cards without necessarily having to require support. I won't spend too much time on self-service, just a few slides, simply to say, again, it's a trend that we see growing, and I would feel irresponsible not calling it out. Again, it's a technology we've had in our solution, in our portfolio for 5 years or more. But if you look at the growth of that system, not just in terms of volumes, but geographically, up until about a year ago, they were primarily all going to the Middle East, and there were some going to South America, into Chile and Argentina. But in the last 12 months, we've really seen it proliferate across Asia Pacific, across North America, and then from Middle East. We now see a lot of deployments popping up in North Africa. So it's a fantastic solution for getting a physical card in the hands of your consumers without necessarily burdening a person who could otherwise be having a conversation with something about kind of a higher value product than the physical card. And it really fits that reimagined branch that we see. There is a decline of the number of branches, but what we're seeing even more of is the reimagining of branches, essentially moving away from kind of big brass bars and wooden countertops through to these things that look more like a coffee shop. And these self-service machines have really garnered a lot of attention from those financial institutions that are trying to create a more casual, more modern look and feel to their branch. This slots really nicely into it because it can be front-ended by a human interaction, like some KYC and AML done human to human, and then that person can say, your card will be issued to that machine, type in this code or however you want to configure that experience. So we work with a number of different kiosk manufacturers. This one on the right here is partnership with Atleos, NCR Atleos. But again, we work with anyone who is who's open to it. We don't have exclusivity around that, and we know that there are a lot of kiosk and ITM and hardware manufacturers. And so if there's a conversation that we can have with whoever you may be leveraging, we'd love that. We'd be very open to that. I wanted to make sure that it wasn't just kind of me saying, take my word for it, trust me. So towards the end here, I just peppered in some customer feedback. It's easily my favorite thing to do as a product marketer, which is talk to our customers about how the technology that they bought from us in the past is improving their lives and the lives of their customers. This is one we did earlier this spring with Darcy at Hawaii State Federal Credit Union. They had instant issuance deployed across their branches in Maui. And when a devastating hurricane came through, it knocked out power. Many folks had to flee their homes, and so they weren't able to get necessarily all their stuff, including their payment cards, their wallets, their purses. And so she actually reached out to us to tell us just how critical her institution felt instant issuance was to ensuring people could, literally buy bottled water and dog food for their family because they had lost everything, including, their payment credentials. So this is one of dozens. I know that it's, I'll just say it's one of dozens. I know that it's one from the United States, but we do have several across Asia Pacific, several across virtually every region, and would love to connect you all with folks wherever they are in the world to have a conversation about what their experience with instant issuance is. Again, we've worked with more than 2,000 financial institutions, and so have a really deep Rolodex where we can foster those. But I thought this was kind of a touching story, and one that connects us to this is technology at the end of the day, but it really drives these human experiences and can kind of make or break the impression of a financial institution based on how they're empowering their consumers to go out and do something as basic as make a payment. I really kind of wanted to focus more on that physical payment card. It's something where we had uncovered a lot of new findings and also have some new solutions rolling out. We also have a digital card solution capability. Pay by account is a fantastic feature or function within digital card solution. It's the ability to essentially digitize a payment, digitize a bank convert that into a transactable source of funds. So instead of having to go through a formal credit card program, this opens up a digitized ability to pay through a banking application that you control, without necessarily having to go through all of the Google Pay and the Apple Pay and the regulation and the regionality and all of that. It's a bit spotty in terms of where that's available and how how broadly it's been adopted. Pay by account is a really great way of getting into that digital payments and opening it up. You know, if we think about instant issuance as opening up accessibility to physical payment cards, for folks wherever they may be, this digitization of it further enables folks who may not be able to get to a branch to begin spending with the mobile device they have. Again, it's one feature kind of in a whole menu of options for digital card solution. We'd love to touch on any of these that may be of interest. I'm not going to cover them today, but essentially it's a software development kit where you can pick and choose as many of these features as are relevant to you all. And I think pay by account is one that is especially interesting. We have a lot of demos, so I think this is my second to last slide. I was just going to leave you with a video of a customer interview, about 2 minutes, that we did. But before I got to that, just want to say, if you go to entrust.com and click on the demos, you'll see that we have Credential Builder. That's going to really take you into the central issuance capabilities. As of last week, we have a brand new digital card solution. And then for instant identity as a service, which is more for workforce and education, non-payment credentials, we also have a demo there. The fourth one I would add here is we're also working on one for instant financial issuance. It's a bit of a hybrid where you'd see the software as well as the printer, so it's taking us a little bit longer, but definitely check those out if you'd like more information there. I'm going to try to play this video. I think the audio will come through. Again, it's fairly short, but I think Jonathan just does a fantastic job of talking about the impact to the customer and how really thinking about unifying that issuance of strategy at a financial institution can drive outsized benefits even for a big bank such as his. Whoops, sorry, I messed that up. Okay.
Hello, Andy. Seems we cannot hear the voice of the video.
Oh, is the audio not coming through?
Yeah, no.
I'm sorry. Okay. Then I will, when we send this deck out, it's an embedded MP4. It's also on YouTube. So my apologies for that. Sorry about that. Let me just try to get past here. There we go. Okay. Thank you for that heads up. Again, sorry. It's not yet on YouTube because it just got finalized this morning, and I wanted to share it with you all. But again, it'll be available as a follow-up here. But I think you kind of got the gist with just some of the text, which was to say massive branch coverage, 1,200 branches, and each and every one of them views instant issuance as a critical piece of how they serve their their customers. And it's really about finding that balance of, how much digital, how much instant, how much central. Typically with consumers, they want to have all of those options. And we certainly see it in financial services because it's such a critical piece of their lives, right? It's like, am I able to pay is up there with, am I able to operate my motor vehicle or get on mass transportation? It's just a fundamental piece of our lives. And so leaning into that and how you issue customers from the first moment you meet them through to the 300th day where they've lost their card or potentially are at risk of a data breach, and protecting them across that identity life cycle is something that we aspire to do globally and have experts in region that can talk about really any piece of this puzzle. But just want to say thank you again for joining us today to look at kind of steps 5 and 6. And in terms of key takeaways, flat card personalization is the future. I think that chart from ABI really told the story well, which is by 2030, essentially every 9 out of 10 cards globally will be flat. Using this new flat revolution as an opportunity to flex your brand, re-envision how you can connect with customers in those micro moments as they're making payments, including elevating, certain ecologically responsible plays that you're making around form factors and substrates, understanding that, right, whatever card you want to issue, especially from a central standpoint, Entrust is able to help you create that product, be it metal, be it something new and eco, be it really strong personalization or a completely fresh new full panel design. There's that full portfolio for you all there. Duplex DoD Lite, again, new addition to the Drop on Demand portfolio. Going to be running live at Singapore FinTech Festival alongside the Artista RS4 as well as the Sigma DS4. Ultimately, your customers want to pay how they want, where they want, when they want. And if anything happens to that payment credential, they're trusting that their financial institution has the ability to get them back up and running. So with that, I'll leave you with 2 fantastic contacts. If anything comes to mind, or if anyone on your team wants to follow up with us further, please reach out to Anarja or Milani or myself. I'm andy.cease@entrust.com. But with that, I'll pause and see if there are any questions that the team or myself could field.
Okay, thank you Mr. Andy for the sharing. So kini kami membuka kesempatan kepada hadirin untuk mengajukan pertanyaan dengan menekan tombol raise hand dan menyampaikan langsung pertanyaannya, ataupun bisa juga dengan bertanya melalui kolom Q&A. Kita mulai dari raise hand. Sudah ada Suryo dari Bank Lampung. Kami persilakan. Selamat pagi Pak Suryo. Ya, mungkin kita ke Q&A box dulu ya. Yang pertama, pertanyaan dari Ibu Meiza Ramadhani. In the process of transforming and enhancing digital and online services for customers, how to ensure that offline customers continue to engage with and visit physical branches? Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah, I see that here. Just reading it. Yeah, I see 2 questions. So I'll answer the one that the first one that came in here. In the process of transforming and enhancing digital online services, how to ensure that offline customers continue to engage with it. I think it's about ensuring that they know what services, what unique services they can receive at that branch. There's so much, I mean, your question sort of alludes to it. There's so much possible in the digital and online world that's typically increasingly where a consumer is going to go to try and answer a question. If they can't find the answer there, we run the risk of that customer thinking, well, it can't be done, when in fact it's something that could be handled in the branch. So we see a variety of marketing approaches, if you will. For instance, in the application itself, so in the place where this person is spending most of their engagement with your bank, having notifications or just simple call outs to say, did you know that at the branch you can replace your card instantly, or you can have a 30-minute consultation with a wealth advisor, or you can onboard your child to your savings account. We see that kind of reminding them of the unique value of that physical branch can kind of offset some of the attrition that we see with folks exclusively engaging digitally. But would love to open that up to any other interest. I don't know if Melanie or Winarja, you have thoughts on that one. Then I think there is okay. Yeah, okay, here's the second one. Do you think digital card or seamless payment can become a threat in the future? We get asked that question a lot. And I'll say that, I think we try to be objective. Obviously, we want we want people to keep using their physical payment cards. We have a digital solution, but when we talk to our financial institutions that do issue a lot of physical cards, either centrally or instantly, we hear that usage continues to grow and that affinity for that card is as strong as it's ever been. So to answer your question, I can imagine a world where a vast majority of the people are spending on a mobile phone. I think we'll never get to a point where we're not, well, not never, but I think it'll be a very long time until we get to a point where we're not issuing physical cards, in part because there's some inherent challenges with mobile devices, right? They're not waterproof, they're not indestructible, they require a battery. And then also just in terms of access, right? Like not everyone has a phone that can be a payment device. So I think that we'll continue to see digital card grow quickly in spaces like e-commerce, where it's just easier to click that button instead of typing in a bunch of information. But then in store, just based on the data, in most countries, a majority of consumers prefer physical to digital. So I think it's a good question. It's one we talk a lot about it at Entrust, just from a strategic standpoint of like, what do we need to build that the market will value? And we just see a lot of room to run and a lot of energy and intensity and excitement around what the future of the physical looks like. But it's something we're always keeping a close eye on, for sure. And that was one of the reasons I'll just zoom up to, some of these surprise me, like apologies, I thought it was further down in the deck here. This one I think is surprising, but it does sort of prove out that for in-store purchases, there's still a really strong preference for that physical card. But we have seen digital and physical balance out, and we could see digital overtake physical from a global standpoint. Certainly, we just don't see that happening in the foreseeable future. Thank you. That was a great question.
Thank you, Mr. Andy. Selanjutnya untuk teman-teman mungkin ada yang mau menyampaikan pertanyaan lagi dalam bahasa dari masalah nanti akan dibantu oleh tim Entrust yang lain. Kami persilakan kepada Bapak Ibu yang ingin bertanya. Ya, oke. Sebelumnya kami ucapkan terima kasih kepada Bapak Ibu yang telah menyampaikan pertanyaannya. Sebentar, ada pertanyaan masuk lagi di Q&A box from Ervan Lesmana dari BNI. The tax projects that by 2030, 9 out of 10 cards will be flat. What economic, regulatory, or consumer behavior trends could either accelerate or hinder this prediction? Mr. Andy, please answer the question.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think from the one that jumps out to me would be regulatory. So we do hear from folks like MasterCard, for instance, where they've done market research and have found out that with embossed cards, folks who are visually impaired have the ability to kind of tell what card that is using embossed. If every card they carry is flat, they can't tactilely discern which card it is they're using. So MasterCard is working on a notched card where it's a half moon for debit. It's kind of a diamond, half of a diamond for credit, and there's another shape for ATM card. That's where I think the industry is being very thoughtful about what would be the impacts of moving away from embossed cards. We do see benefit from an economic standpoint with tap to pay, the ability to tap as opposed to insert or swipe is something that drives usage, and that is that's something that would be benefited by flat card, because with the embossers, there's the risk of punching through the antenna. Certainly some contactless cards can be embossed, but it's just something that has to be considered. So I would think that the manufacturing of these cards could become more efficient if we don't have to account for embossing. But the one between economic, regulatory, consumer, regulatory again jumps out just because we want these things to be accessible by everyone. And so creating that notch would help accelerate the adoption of flat. And then from a consumer behavior standpoint, we certainly hear all over, globally, that the embossed characters do carry some cachet. They have a bit of value attributed to them that a flat card doesn't necessarily carry. And so I think some of that will be kind of culturally a move away from this sense that embossed is a real payment card and flat isn't. That's the one that kind of jumps out from consumer behavior, making sure people understand that this is as capable and even better than your old card, even though it doesn't have tipping foil and raised characters. And then I see a response from Bayu. True, because in my view, physical card becoming at a cost company versus investment. Yeah, that's a good point, right? I mean, to issue a physical card is more expensive than to issue a digital credential. We just see in the data and from many of our customers, even when they adopt digital cards, they still see a really strong pull from their user base for physical cards as well. It's a hot topic. It's a good conversation.
Thank you, Andy, for your explanation. So I think a lot of questions are coming about the physical card and also the digital card. So ladies and gentlemen, after this meeting, I will request Mbak Ranti as a Secretary FKDOP to send the slide presentation from Entrust. So you can find my email as a sales manager for Indonesia market who handle physical card and also digital card. So we can having a further discussion if you still have more question or more clarification required. Yeah. Thank you, Mbak Ranti.
Thank you, Bu Gani. Okay, there is one more question. Oh, sorry. Oke. Terima kasih Bapak Ibu untuk pertanyaannya, and thank you for Mr. Andy for the explanation. Sebelum mengakhiri rangkaian acara hari ini, berikut kami tampilkan video prakata dari Ketua Umum FKDOP, Bapak Arman Wahyudi Hartono, terkait kegiatan Second Annual IOPS 2026. Kami persilakan.
Salam luar biasa, saya Arman Wahyudi Hartono, Ketua FKDOP. Ingin mengajak semua rekan-rekan perbankan untuk ikut dalam acara IOPS 2026. Sebuah acara bergengsi di mana semua teman-teman dari semua perbankan bisa memperlihatkan semua kegiatan-kegiatan terkait dengan inovasi, improvement apapun juga yang dapat membangun bank Anda menjadi lebih baik. Bisa membuat semua menjadi lebih efisien, lebih produktif, dan profit tentunya meningkat. Yang kita harapkan dari acara ini tentunya adalah seluruh perbankan Indonesia bisa berkompetisi, yaitu ajang meningkatkan kompetensi sehingga seluruh perbankan Indonesia menjadi kelas dunia. Ayo ikut dalam IOPS 2026.
Jadi teman-teman perbankan diharapkan bisa mengikuti kegiatan Second Annual IOPS 2026 pada bulan April mendatang, serta sudah mulai mempersiapkan inovasi atau ide-ide apa yang akan dibawakan. FKDOP would like to say thank you to Entrust Asia Pacific Limited for kindly serving as a speaker at the Indonesia Banking Innovation Conclave today. Terima kasih juga kami ucapkan kepada Bapak Ibu pengurus dan anggota FKDOP, Bapak Ibu pengurus harian FKDOP, serta para hadirin yang telah meluangkan waktunya untuk mengikuti kegiatan IBIC. Mohon maaf atas kekurangan dalam penyelenggaraan kegiatan pada hari ini. Selamat pagi, sampai berjumpa di Indonesia Banking Innovation Conclave selanjutnya, and stay tuned for Second Annual Indonesia Operation Banking Summit 2026. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
From day zero, Entrust Financial Issuance and Digital Onboarding Solutions can enable your customers to bank securely whenever and wherever they want. Create trust at onboarding and beyond with a complete AI-powered identity-centric solution for financial issuance. Reduce the complexity around everyday financial transactions that you can now place securely right at the tip of your customer's fingers. Harness the full power of a comprehensive solution, whether for end-to-end protection or specific components like award-winning document and biometric ID verification or seamless on-demand card issuance. Strengthen your infrastructure with cutting-edge identity-proofing solutions that safeguard data, prevent fraud, and ensure a smooth, secure experience at every touchpoint. This isn't banking built just for today. This is banking built for today, tomorrow, and every day. Entrust, securing a world in motion.
Built for the future? Heck, it was born in the cloud. Introducing Sigma. User-friendly? Consider the owner's manual optional. Secure? It's as if it has its own bodyguard. Forward-thinking? It's ahead of its time. Simple, secure, smart. It all adds up to Sigma. Available from Entrust.
Untuk acara IOPS ini keren banget, memberikan kita kesempatan untuk menunjukkan inovasi-inovasi di dunia banking dan digital.
Dan kita juga jadi bisa benchmark ke bank-bank lain inovasi apa aja yang mereka udah bikin untuk kita implement juga, dan modifikasi nanti kita implementasinya seperti apa di bank kami, seperti itu.
Jadi insight ya,
Iya,
insight
betul.
untuk
Iya.
kita juga nggak mau kalah juga nih
Betul.
gitu, untuk nantinya melakukan enhancement dan juga inovasi selanjutnya.
Oke, terima kasih teman-teman sudah menyelenggarakan IOPS. Semoga kedepannya semakin sukses dan menjadi tempat untuk berkreasi lebih bagus lagi.
Kompetisi hari ini menegangkan tapi seru.